expenditure. And it turned out that the city charter required a supermajority vote. And so you needed to get 4 votes. 3 wasn't good enough. And one of the commissioners was running for re-election, decided to grandstand, and thought he could get more than $50,000 a key, wouldn't vote for it. It died. The recession happened. The project just sat there as a ghost town with, you know, empty benches and streetlights and clock towers and a big gate around it. And they sold those units for $25,000 a door about 4 years later. The wetlands weren't an issue because the point I made to this gentleman earlier was we simply bought wetland credits in those wetland banks out west and were able to proceed even though the property, this is all wetlands under that P&L easement, even though the entire property was wetlands, we were able to buy into the bank and get our permitting done at the federal and state level.
I have a question, Danny. Was that a combination? Like, did you do some of it off-site? Did you do some of it?
Yes, it was a combination.
And some of it
yes.
doing literal
zones? For instance, the literal zones here are all planted and maintained and are the subject of the conservation easement in perpetuity, all the usual stuff. You have to monitor them to make sure that no more than 10% of exotics invade them every year for a period of 5 years, and the rules go on and on and on. So I guess the lesson on that one is until the final vote, nothing really matters. You know,
closed until it's closed.
Yes. When the fat lady sings, as they say. Okay, that's the second one. I'm going to do a total of 5, by the way. The third one takes us up to 2008. This is a 100-acre property. This is Sunrise Boulevard up here. Right up here, across the street, is the Sawgrass Mills Mall. And this is 160 right there. This project is a development of regional impact. Everybody familiar with that? Good?
Yes, they are.
And old DRIs are very dangerous. This is an old one, dating back into the early 80s. It was put in place for a single user of the 600,000 square feet of office, but 32 acres remained undeveloped. And so the charge I was given was to take that 32 acres and again, this was 2008, right when the recession was, everybody was acknowledging it. To take it and to create a little city here. That's what Pat Salerno, the then city manager, wanted. He was large and in charge. You always need to worry about the politics when you're doing comprehensive plan amendments. He wanted to see something like downtown Fort Lauderdale on this site in terms of FARs. He wanted 25-story residential towers, 20 to 25-story office towers, and so, and we, just like in '88, where the mayor told me I wasn't going to get any permits unless we brought a plan forward that met that vision. It wasn't going to get through because I'm sure that you've heard that all comprehensive plan amendments are wholly discretionary with the powers that be. They can say no just because it's Tuesday. They don't need any rational nexus, any substantial competent evidence. They can just say no. So we brought forward a plan that had at this end about 1 million square feet of office, and over here about 1,000 multifamily units. Main Street that ran, sorry for the shaky hands, that ran through the middle with 300,000 square feet of retail on it, along with a hotel nestled in here, and a big one. And then on the other side of, and there's all required parking garages, and so there were liner units of apartments that shielded the cars from the public view.
Is this residential Sawgrass?
Yeah, this is Sawgrass Mills is right here. Okay, and I'm sorry, I should have left it in the picture. So what we did here was we had to process not only the comprehensive land use plan amendment, but we had to amend the DRI at the same time. There's a concept called a substantial deviation where you change things. There are various thresholds of what constitutes a substantial deviation. You effectively have to start over and revisit the DRI with the city and the county and the region and Tallahassee. So we did those things on parallel track, and we got it approved. We had tough political issues. We had the city of Plantation, I shouldn't say the city of Plantation, we had Plantation Acres, a very rural portion of Plantation oppose us in the public forums at every step of the way. We got through that. And we also had a burning affordable housing issue. And we were the first kids on our block to have to agree to pay $750 a door, or what's called a linkage fee, if that ever got passed, which is a fee charged in theory linked to when you create jobs, you, the developer, are impacting the housing stock, and thus the link you should pay into a fund for affordable housing. So we had to do that. That was an exaction that we had to do to get the property approved. The difficulty, of course, is that with the recession, I've got this great big bushel basket full of entitlements, and there's no market for it. And so the property is sitting there today exactly as you see it. And the carry on the property, the interest on the preferred return for partners is building and building and building, and it becomes more and more apparent that we're not going to be able to use all of that great big bushel of entitlements. And so the takeaway on this one is that for decades it was a truism that if you went out and you got property entitled, you had inherently created value. The entitlements in and of themselves created value. And that, in my opinion, is no longer the case today. If you can't take the property to market, what value have you created? Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned that you had opposition the whole way from Plantation Acres.
Uh-huh.
What was their opposition?
They didn't want to see 25-story towers and offices.
And we still don't want to see
And
it.
was it,
Yeah.
was it
You're right.
their
We
opposition?
still don't want to see it.
Was it their opposition that halted the plan, or was it a combination of that
Combination.
and the economy?
No, their opposition was effectively overturned by virtue of the affirmative votes of the city and the county. And we did a number of studies showing that they really weren't going to see the towers, and did a lot of community outreach in that regard. And that's another issue that will come to. Yes, sir.
Currently, there are big towers going up by Sawgrass.
Yeah, there's a that's also impacting this property. There's a project called Metropica, which has broken ground. They got subsidies from the city for parking garages. One of the difficulties in developing the kind of intensity and density that I talked about on this site is that the only way you can do it is with structured parking. Well, structured parking doesn't historically work in suburbia because tenants won't pay for it. They'll pay for it in downtown Fort Lauderdale, but they won't pay for it in suburbia. And so this project had an economic challenge already with the fact that its intensity required structured parking, which these days is almost, believe it or not, $20,000 a space. Yeah, it's gone from, I used to build them for 7 or 8. Now it's 19,000 and change. So here, the partnership is now facing the competition that you raised because Metropica solved the parking dilemma with subsidies from the city. And so they're proceeding, and that makes it even harder to go forward with this project. And to date, the partnership has not been willing to take the risk associated with going forward in this market.
Even though you overcame the objections from Plantation Acres, do you think that it slowed you down?
No.
It didn't this time, but it can, and
Well,
that's
it can.
just aside. That kind of opposition, even if you overcome it, can slow you down enough to tip the balance and make you lose your window in the market. And I've seen that happen in downtown Miami with some projects. So again, even if you win, you might win the battle and lose the war if you've lost the market. But
Yes.
So what would be your recommendation for them at this point?
Well, we back when I was with Stiles, I left them a year ago, we presented to the partnership a plan which was a reduction in density. Instead of 20-story apartments, there were 6 stories with a combination of surface and just a little structured parking. Cut the office component down to 300,000 square feet and cut the retail down to 200,000 square feet. Again, you have to be careful in how much smaller you made it, because remember that the local activity center designation effectively requires that density, that intense density, to meet their combination of qualifying parameters for that land use category. So the partners said no. They said, we're just going to sit on.
I think you're just taxing it out, just taking tax loss.
Well, no, they're actually staring at. Eventually, they'll go underwater. It will. If something doesn't happen in the relatively near future, it will go negative. But the thought is that with everything that's happening out in that area of the county, that there may be a single user who shows up and takes the whole thing off the partnership's hand. And the partnership would be happy to entertain it.
is this, are the existing, but what you did was only on the vacant land, it would leave that other campus in place?
Yeah, the partnership owns it. And
The other part, the other campus
Yeah.
part of it, I would call it, yeah?
yes,
Is that where, I'm trying to picture it, is that where the school board went into
Yes.
after the storm?
Yes.
That area? Okay.
and where the city of Sunrise went for some time.
Yeah,
For
after the
about
storm.
a year and a
Gotcha.
half after
Okay.
the storm. Anything else on that one?
Very interesting.
Thank you. All right, this next one, this one is interesting. I'm taking you now to, this is again, 2008. The property that you're looking at is 800 acres, located 600 acres is in Gilchrist County, and 200 acres is in Alachua County. And two very wealthy investors fell in love with it, and they bought it. And then they called it, which is not really the way it's supposed to work. But Tracy will tell you it happens all the time. And so the difficulty is that in the Alachua County portion of the property, this property is outside the urban service boundaries, and on the Gilchrist side of the property, the land use was 1 unit per 5 acres. Okay? So, but Gilchrist is going broke, and was going broke, is still going broke. And the concept that the investors had was to create a fly-in community. And this was a 5,000 landing strip, one and only landing strip I know built. And so that was supposed to be the engine that would support a flying community for bull gators who would go up and buy 5-acre, 10-acre, 15, 20-acre estates, have taxiways for their planes to their homes. And so it was a high-end flying community concept. And what we tried to do was, initially, we tried to go from the underlying 1 unit per 5 acres to 1 unit an acre. Now that's a huge swing for a planner or a commission or the Department of Community Affairs. We got through both counties, and the Regional Planning Council didn't squawk, but when it got up to Tallahassee and the Department of Community Affairs, they wrote the most scathing orc letter. Are they familiar with that? It's not Lord of the Rings, but it feels like it.
Not too much. Objections, recommendations, and comments.
And it's called an orc letter. This one was terribly damning. They must have used the word sprawl 15 times in 3 pages. And I went up to see them and they said, hey, it's not no, it's hell no. We're going to the mat on this one. And so went back to the county and said, you know, you're going to have to fight it. And the county said, we're not fighting the state. So what we did is we regrouped, and we found a planner who had done a number of projects where he had clustered homes and created a lot of open space and tied it to the university and done some very interesting things. We brought him in. What ended up happening is we clustered, as opposed to estate homes, we clustered townhouses and 0 lot lines north of the runway with some taxiways to units running along the north side of the landing strip. And then down here, we put in, again, mostly 0 lot lines, all with taxiway runways to the airstrip. And the flip side of clustering is that when you condense and compress your unit count, you create open space. It's the other side of the coin. So when we went back to DCA with that plan, this was to have a golf course, skeet shooting range, equestrian facilities. There's a wonderful spring shed up there, hiking trails and so forth. And so when we went back with the clustered plan, we had 600 units that were clustered here, and all the rest of this was open space. 70% was open space, and we only put 5 units over in Alachua, and we're going to service them with the water and sewer plant that we were going to build from Gilchrist County. So we entered into an interlocal agreement between the 2 counties to do that. So, long story short, we got it approved. But what happened in the interim is the FAA called and said, you got to build that runway now. The permit's been extended 4 times by your predecessors. Build it or lose it. So even though we had no market, because we now had created a second family home community, that's what townhouses stand for. There wasn't a market for that, but the partners had to go ahead and they spent $3 million putting in that runway that nobody's using. And it sits there today. I think their kids or their grandkids they see something for it. But there are 2 lessons I think to take away from this. One is be careful what you ask for. I mean, we asked for a plan that we thought would get approved, but then the market for second home communities collapsed. And then the other lesson is don't ever fall in love with your dirt, which is what the investors did. You can't recover from paying too much for your dirt. You're just in a black hole. Any questions?
Actually, I have a question.
Yes.
This is outside of Gainesville, right?
Yeah, it's about 22 miles west of Gainesville.
I think that this planet is for selling Brooklyn. I saw it.
Yes. Yeah. It's called Oak Tree Landing.
Yeah.
How much are they asking?
More than $3 million.
I'm sorry?
I can't remember the price, but I checked it.
It's being marketed now?
Yeah, it's been marketed. I saw it maybe 1 month ago.
No.
No, I saw it on Lublin. I don't know
Yeah.
when. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Were the approvals that you got, were
Thank you.
timing, like
I did.
they
I
expire?
did something that I've never been able to do before. The approvals that I described, the 605 units, are good ad infinitum. They never expire,
Wow.
which is the thing I'm probably proudest of all the machinations I went through on this project, because that's just not the case. As Tracy mentioned, there's usually a use it or lose it provision built into either your development order or your plat or development agreement. But that's why they can sit there, is the entitlements are good forever, and it is doubtful that they'll have any competition. I don't see anybody else getting a similar comp plan amendment through now, because the spring shed regulations have changed. I did get a 20-year permit for water, and that's probably the limiting factor. It'll be difficult to get that permit renewed if they don't act on it within the next 18 months.
So did you have another question, or you just tried working it?
First was looking at, but I was just kind of curious, kind of backtracking about
Sure.
asking. Have you ever considered about like rezoning that into that parcel land for commercial use, possibly with parcel companies? Or is it too far out in the rural area?
It's too far out in the rural area. We have about 12,000 square feet of retail, which is really there to support I'm sorry, 18,000 square feet of retail, which is there to support the resident community. There's we had to do silly things. We had to move the golf clubhouse from the Gilchrist side to the Alachua County side, because Gilchrist on Sundays is completely dry. There is no alcohol sales, and golfers are known to drink on Sundays. So there are always these strange things that go on when you go through this process. Okay, last one, and we'll take you to the present. This is 77-acre tract that's formerly known as American Golfers. It's kind of opposite the Maikai. This entire tract was an 18-hole par 3 course. I grew up playing golf there in the 50s. It's been there that long. And the owners of this tract also own the Coral Ridge Country Club, which is very exclusive and very pricey. And this was completely unexclusive and very cheap. And you could play around here for $15. And over here it was a $50,000 initiation. So, what happened here is another hurricane story. This one was Wilma. Wilma came in and absolutely devastated the American Golfers portion of the properties. And the par 3 course wasn't making any money anyway. And so the partnership said, let's turn it into high-end homes in a gated community. And so we went forward with a comprehensive plan amendment, and it was to take all of this, effectively all of this property, and turn it into 66 very, very expensive lots. And up in front we had commercial zoning, 4.5 acres of commercial zoning on Federal Highway, by way of a landmark. The Maikai is about right there somewhere. We spent the money to put together the package, which is not cheap, for the comprehensive finance bill. You'll spend a couple $100,000 to do it correctly, with all of the architects and engineers and planners, lawyers that you need. And it became an absolute nightmare. The surrounding neighborhood objected vociferously, and a candidate, a then unknown lawyer by the name of Ken Keachel, ran on one issue for the county commission, and that was to stop this project. And he actually upset a sitting, very well-known county commissioner who had been a former senator, Jim Scott, and on that issue alone, we went down in flames. The county, because this is supposed to be about comprehensive plan changes, the county changed its comprehensive plan because of this project and created a section that says that conversion of golf courses to anything other than open space is strongly discouraged unless you meet the 5-point test, which I won't bother you with. So it was denied, and we had nowhere to go. But thankfully, the partnership that owns all of this is very well heeled, and said, look, we're just going to let it lay there, and it's going to get uglier, and eventually people will get tired of looking at brown grass and squirrels and rabbits and raccoons, and that's what they did. And so it sat fallow for about 6 years, and then these same homeowners said, God, it'd really be nice if a project could go in there. And so what we did was, because we had to, again, pass that 5-prong test in the county's comp plan in order to get our change from, I apologize, all of this was designated open space on the county comprehensive plan. So we had to change that to low residential, and it was a specific number of units. And we reduced the unit count. What you see in white are the pads for 36 homes. We went down from 66 to 36, and we put in a practice 9-hole golf course where you saw the pointer, so that every resident here and every resident around the golf course would again have a golf course view. And so that was the neighborhood outreach. We spent about $100,000 going door to door, and we got 52 out of the 56 surrounding homeowners to sign off on a petition to go forward. We dedicated to meet one of the criteria in the county's comp plan. We dedicated a 4-acre park, which you couldn't go to today. It's beautiful. There's now a fresh market open right there, and there's a pad for either a bank or we need another bank, right?
I think it's SunTrust.
Yeah, yeah, and this is the roadway. This is the guardhouse leading into the gated community, and the lots are going for 800,000 to 1.4, and they are selling. So, yeah, I guess the takeaway on this one is if you've got the staying power and you've got the will, there's nothing that's impossible to get done in this business, and that's kind of the attitude you have to adopt if you're going to get into the development game. So that's what I have.
What are the lot sizes?
They're almost all a half an acre. Some are a teeny bit smaller, and a couple of them are on point ends or larger. But they average just about a half an acre. And it's the first gated community built on the east side of town in forever. I can't.
So are the lot buyers like engaging their own contractors, or is the developer acting as a contractor on the lot build?
We had a huge debate over that in the partnership. Which way to go? Do you have a friends and family sort of sale program because you've only got 36 lots to sell, and there are people working on the project that know how to do that. That's what I did for a long time. And the manager of the Coral Ridge Country Club sold all the lots to Hilton Head, so he knows how to do it. And then we also thought about just picking 3 high-end home builders and having them divvy up fairly among themselves the property and let them run with it. At the end of the day, the partnership made the decision that there was enough interest that with the proper restrictions in the declaration of covenants with regard to architectural controls, there wouldn't be a risk of anybody coming in and building something other than a $2.5 to $3 million home if they're going to pay $800,000 to 1.3 or 4 for the lot. So
For the motor home?
yeah, I don't think that gets through
Inside.
the architectural review committee. So.
So did the hole stay there because of the provision from way back when they said that, you said there were 5 conditions that need to be met? Is
Yeah.
that why you guys kept 9 holes there? 'Cause it seems like kind of a waste.
You know, you raise a really good point. It's making lemons out of lemonade. You know, the club members of the Coral Ridge Country Club are enjoying this. They like having the practice facility, and the surrounding residents like having. It looks exactly like the Coral Ridge Country Club. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the 2 courses. But the answer to your question is that it met preserve as much open space as you can in doing the conversion, and that's why we did the reduction in the unit count.
And did you ever plan on actually getting the 60-something homes approved, or were you
Yeah.
guys happy with
Yeah.
wouldn't think
We
so.
have absolutely thought we could get it approved.
Oh, you did think you
Oh, absolutely. This came out of, another, lesson with comprehensive plan amendments is that something always comes out of left field.
thought it was just one of those shoots
Just
for the
just,
thing?
The neighborhood, we didn't expect a reaction from the neighborhood that we got. And we certainly didn't expect it to become as highly politicized as it did.
Is that why I see George's sign more than Ken's sign?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably. But it's if you can drive, you can, they're trying to sell lots. If you want to go look at it, it's absolutely gorgeous. The vistas are long and beautiful in 3/4 of the property. The 3851 is the gateway, right next to the fresh market. You can just drive in and take a peek at it. But
And what you were suggesting, Noah, the idea that they might have over-planned it initially so that they had something to move back to that was really acceptable. For a lot of projects, that's not a bad strategy. It's easy enough for your architect to throw a few more stories on the tower and take them back off again for that strategic purpose. But for a land use plan amendment, you've got to spend a lot of money to do that application. And I don't think for a land use plan, and you tell me, if it doesn't really pay to strategically do a full-scale land use plan amendment for something that isn't what you really want.
correct. I agree completely.
Okay.
There's one other thing that drove the creation of this, which is that all golf courses are polluted. They have all been, arsenic is everywhere, every golf course is polluted. And so the environmental permitting on this was difficult, but very interesting, because what we did was I'll try to tell this quickly and keep it abbreviated.
No, you've got time, go ahead.
I did? Okay. So the entire 77 acres is contaminated, okay? And we had to, first of all, we had to keep the county from making us study groundwater contamination off the site, because who knows where that would stop. It could end up at Bayview Drive to the east. And then we had to come up with a remediation plan that showed that we were dealing with the arsenic infested dirt and meet the state thresholds for habitat. And so what we did was we did an incredible amount of borings. And we found that there was a great deal of usable fill in that area right there. And so we scraped to almost groundwater the 36 lots. And we dug this fill out and filled those lots. And we took the polluted dirt and we put it under the road, which is permissible, because then it's capped. Okay? So, and that saved, rather than importing fill, that saved millions of dollars. It added to our construction time, but it saved millions of dollars by doing it. So, and it was a lot more complicated than that. We actually had to dig new wells because the old wells were polluted, so we had to go through the process of shutting those down and getting new permits for those wells.
This is compared with the stock market. If you got doing hard times, if you got staying power, stay and not good.
That's right. This is not a game for the faint-hearted. It's a high risk, high reward. Land development is on a large scale is just that. It's high risk, high reward. So. Anything else?
It was wonderful, thank you.
Oh, good,
And
thanks.
again, open,
Thank you.
I'm putting him on the spot now, but any sort of questions
Yeah,
about being
then-
in the development business, feel free. And that's not going to be about any of the particular projects.
No, let me give you my email address. If anybody comes up with any other questions that you have, I'll respond. It's O'Shea, O-S-H-E-A, H-E-A-D, at gplaw.com. Welcome, my pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bill.
Well,
By the way-
I wanted you to have a taste of real life, and I couldn't think of more real life than what Denny's spent his
Well,
career doing.
I'll make one comment. Tracy shared with me the exercise she prepared for you today, and I got to tell you, I wish that I had a professor that did that when I was taking land use law, because the exercise you're going to go through is pretty much as close to real life as what we actually do.
A little something for everyone.
Absolutely. So,
All right,
thanks.
thanks.
Okay. Have a good day.
All right, thank you.
Oh, do you want your thumb drive? Denny?
Thank you very much.
Denny,
Your
you
top
want
five, Danny.
Denny, you want your thumb?
Danny, your tongue drive.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Just might shape it
Yes. I didn't realize you couldn't get anything downloaded without going through it. Thank you.
All right.
Have a great afternoon, everybody.
All right, you too, thank you.
Thank you.
I had the problem on my thumb
Nothing, thank you.
drive. Okay. You guys want to take a quick break?
Yeah.
All right, 10 minutes.
Because I can't just play it to myself.
Oh, yeah,
Play
do that. Remind, I'm glad you reminded me of that before we get into the problem, so that.
That's very interesting.
I hoped you would find it so.
Creo que sí, después de la clase.
What's this watershed regulation? What is that?
That, I'll have to ask him about that. Watershed, I think it must be something similar to a watershed, that if there are, because in the central part of the state, there are springs, underground springs, and there must be an area around them that is protected in some sense.
Okay.
But it's not something I was familiar with either.
I meant to ask that question, but he
I was bad
started
at, I should
talking about something else and I forgot.
Yes. I'm trying to remember if I put it. Oh, Town of Davie, who had Town of Davie stuff? That was this team. Hmm? No, you did Dania Beach.
Yeah, thank you.
In your beach, oh, they're so close together, I can't remember.
Yes, me too, because I'm relatively new here.
You guys live, do you live down here now, or do you live in it?
Yeah, it's funny because we live in the Dykes Road area.
Oh,
Over in that area.
so is that Weston, or is it the west part of Davie?
It's Pembroke Pines.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Weston's a little bit, you get the Weston?
There were
Weston's
pieces,
a little bit west of us.
who do these belong to? Your teams? Pieces?
Yeah.
Or-
It's us over there.
Hmm?
It's- When you put that up, I was like, hey, that's us.
Yeah.
Interesting to hear the history.
Well, in each each year there's, in this class, you know, there's kind of a different collection of people, different collection of, and last year, there were a lot of, you know, younger people, hadn't started families yet, that kind of thing. There were older people too, but, and so we were talking about it, and they talked very enthusiastically about all these concepts of new urbanism, you know, walkability and all this, and like, oh no, I said, so how many of you want to buy a condo in a place like that? No hands went up, and I'm like, why? And I'm, you know, I want to start a family someday and I want a yard. And I'm like, okay, so the more things change, the more things stay the same when it comes down to it.
Like, though it kind of intrigues me with the difference in terms like between real estate here in the United States, on the most part to that of Europe, because because I grew up in Sweden, so I've seen like in terms of like how people get around. Because in Sweden, everybody actually uses like a different source of transportation. People take the bus, people take trains to go get around. More
Ride
so
bicycles,
than,
more bicycles.
especially bicycle, and more or less they compare it to here in the United States.
I know.
I mean, at least some parts of the United States are beginning to invest more into alternative modes of transportation, especially more into buses and rail, like Denver is right now. So they're putting in, I'm just guessing if I remember right, over $400 million into rail infrastructure. I mean, in terms of like when you say like walkability, like, I mean, even yeah, it makes sense because how else are you gonna get around if you're just gonna be walking, or instead of walking or just taking a car?
But, and yet, people in their late 20s and early 30s, yeah, they might want to rent a place there for a few years, but when it comes down to it, they still want to raise their family in a suburban single-family home here in the U.S., mostly.
Your Fred's voice,
Hmm?
Fred's voice not simple.
Who?
Yeah, brother or something?
Your husband? You sick?
He was supposed to be
Oh my God. So you're gonna take off, huh?
I think.
Yeah.
He's gonna do it.
You gonna take off? Yeah. All right. Feel better.
So you're recording this exercise, right?
Yeah, I don't know how useful it's going to be because there's going to be lots of breaking up, talking separately, but it's on,
Okay.
all right?
Thank you.
Here, let me give you, you have you have the basic problem, and then there was a section that I was going to distribute selectively on the city staff response and the neighborhood opposition. So you'll have that. And it's
That's
it.
Are you teaching overtime?
this is the only class I teach, so, class I teach.
You were so upset when you took that break.
Well, no, oh, it was the Tuesday and Thursday night. That's,
Oh, well, see,
Yeah.
we were commuting and so we didn't have to.
yeah, Yeah, I couldn't commit to a Tuesday and Thursday night, because if I get a city hearing, I can't, I've gotta be able to be available to do a hearing, so we're good.
Because we couldn't come on Tuesday and Thursday anyway, because we were committed to Jacksonville.
Oh, okay.
It was very nice to meet you. Thank you so
Feel
much.
better.
Today's the last class.
Today's the last class?
Guys, who
Who's
was
funding? On a roll. Okay, well, this is gonna be a little bit harder to do with a smaller group. But let's talk about the exam first. Is there some Antoine or Sylvan?
I went to
The one-
food court,
They went all the way over.
little food court.
Didn't they eat right before they
What's
came
wrong with
here?
them?
They're hungry.
Well, no, because they close at 2, right?
They do, yes. But it's,
They could have gone to the library, they have a food place in there.
There's,
I don't understand. Okay, final exam. We could do, I'm gonna give it at least 2 days. I need to get it done by some point on Wednesday, because that only gives me Thursday, Friday, Saturday with my own commitments to get it graded and get your grades accurate. So I can do it. The thing is, I could give you the whole time. I could send it out Sunday night and give you all the way until Wednesday night. But if they all come in on Wednesday night, I'm gonna be.
Could you do
That
it
would be-
tonight and give us, I mean,
Mhm.
well, I'm gonna work on it tomorrow personally, some people may work on it on Monday, I mean,
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've got it written, but I need to give it a once over and make sure that I'm not covering things we didn't cover. So it'll probably be tomorrow evening before I can get it out. You all,
yeah.
the ability to work on it tomorrow during the day would be important to you.
That's the only.
yeah,
Very
that's,
important.
tomorrow's a great time, it's just Sunday.
Yeah.
Um,
You do tomorrow like at noon or something, I mean,
yeah,
At what?
noon?
noon tomorrow. Okay, I can get it out noon tomorrow and give you.
Wednesday at noon.
Yeah, we can do that.
What?
Like Wednesday at noon.
I like that, because since my other classroom's 4 and 5, I have a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, so it'll be
Work
working
tomorrow
next
and
weekend, so
I'll tweak it on Monday,
like what I have to
and
find
I'm done.
tomorrow.
So you're saying that all you have is Sunday?
All I really have to sit down and work on it for as long as it takes to work on this, that, because then I work all the way from Monday through Friday. And then
So
Fridays.
time in the evenings, do you guys have evening classes? Because the classes will be over today, right? So you have evening classes
My
next
next set starts
Yeah,
Tuesday.
Monday.
What is that?
The next set of, fall starts on Monday.
Starts Monday night?
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I have to like make sure I finish all this work for the last class and start my new class.
Yeah, that's still my stuff to start doing for that set.
Because since the hurricane puts everything back.
I'll volunteer if you want. Send it to me tonight. I'll be the test dummy. I'll get it back to you tomorrow. And then you don't have to worry about proofreading or anything else.
Okay, so the earlier I can get it to you, the better.
Sure.
Okay. I will keep that in mind. I will do my very best to get it. And again, it's mostly done. There's a few things, there's a few questions from old sessions that I'm like, did we really cover that? That I wanted to look through to make it fair. So I will get it out as soon as I can. And whenever I get it out, it will be due Wednesday at noon. Dudes, come back.
Well,
I know they have to leave soon.
Hmm?
I have to leave soon.
guess the value of this without having,
Can
without.
I, quick question,
Mhm.
is there any possibility you're getting it out tonight, cause if not, I'm gonna drink. But if you are gonna get it out tonight, I'm going to do it.
You're not gonna get it out tonight, so you can drink.
I don't know. There is some possibility, but I don't know.
Very
I have an obligation after this class is over myself,
Okay.
so I'll have to be working on it after.
You know they have a flight big thing after,
I
right?
guess when you drink, it means you are not functional
I'm
for any other
dedicated to
purpose.
what I'm doing.
What?
I'm dedicated to whatever I'm doing.
Oh, to be young and resilient.
I only get one night of sleep, I don't waste it on drinking.
Man, you splurging one night of sleep. That's a lot.
I mean, if you go to work Monday through Friday, and you gotta wake up at 6, and you gotta be here at school at 7 on a Saturday, the only good rest night you can get is a Saturday night. And you know you don't sleep good when you drink, right? You get that bad sleep.
Yeah,
You get that good.
Tossing
pass
and
out.
turning sleep.
Oh, man. So
No.
we're-
Oh, actually, no, if I'm gonna do it tomorrow, I'll feel like crap.
Yeah, you don't wanna be there either.
So, if you get it out tonight.
Don't you guys have a party, have a cocktail party tonight?
Yeah, it's 30 minutes. Yeah, it's a
Oh.
30-minute event.
Oh, really? That's all it is?
That's what it says on the email, from 4:30 to 5. That's what it said on the email.
Maybe they went early.
Yeah, that's not much of a party.
4:30 to 5:30.
Where is it?
At the flight deck.
Is that over in the University Center too?
It's on the other side. Let's, by the library.
Don Taft.
Oh,
It's that way, not that way.
It's like-
It's
one of
where
these
the-
ways.
It's where the, it's,
You walk past the library
Don
and
Taft
it's,
Center.
yeah.
it's where the arena is.
Yes, my kids, my daughter had theater performances in that building. We
Graduations.
graduated from high school in that building.
I have a son graduated from that. From the moment.
They have a cute little black box theater in there. Back when my daughter was gonna major in musical theater.
So are these guys coming back?
Their stuff's here.
They have.
All right. Did you have a chance to read the problem so far, or did we? It's okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So this is not unlike Fort Lauderdale and Pompano Beach and Deerfield Beach, where there's part of the city on the barrier island and part of the city west.
Sounds like a mess from what I'm reading.
All right, and you know what? I'm gonna read it out loud, everybody, just so that it's on the video. And so Silver Beach is a small city on the east coast of Florida. Part of the city is on the barrier island between the ocean and the intercoastal. The remainder of the city lies west of the intercoastal. The western boundary lies about a half-mile east of the interstate rail corridor. The areas between the city's current western boundary and this rail corridor were identified for annexation at the time the city was incorporated. However, the annexation has been delayed because the annexation area is comprised of neglected industrial areas requiring significant drainage improvements, and similarly neglected multifamily rental and mobile home housing. Existing development on the barrier island is primarily low to mid-rise tourist motels, restaurants, souvenir shops, and other convenience retail oriented toward tourists. There are also areas of low-density residential development on the barrier island, including an enclave of very expensive single-family homes with deep water dockage, and a cluster of 5 condominium towers between 14 and 18 stories tall at the very southern end of the city. This high-rise area was developed under county regulations before the city was incorporated. Soon after incorporation, the City Commission adopted new zoning regulations for the barrier island that greatly restricted building heights. However, the city adopted the county future land use plan unchanged. The plan permitted density on the barrier island of up to 50 dwelling units per acre, and because the plan counted a hotel room as 1/2 of a dwelling unit, up to 100 hotel rooms per acre. The condominium towers were all built by the same developer and originally prohibited children, but the associations governing 4 of the 5 towers failed to take steps to remain over 55 when the federal fair housing law changed. Therefore, 4 condominiums now are open to families, and 1 condominium tower is restricted to residents 55 and over. The barrier island is accessible by 2 bridges that cross the intercoastal within the city. North Boulevard and South Boulevard. I tried to keep those labels simple, but A1A also connects the barrier island to the unincorporated area of the county to the south. Then there's kind of a summary of some of the land use regulations in the city. And
Who's missing? I need someone else. Who's missing?
No,
For the group.
oh yeah, well, I don't know how we're going to do this yet because
Oh, okay.
Frederick got sick and Kirsten's going to have to leave, so we're only going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people to meet.
You can be in my group.
I'm just not sure how we're going to do this now with this few people. Okay, so the proposed project. Utopia Development has spent several years quietly assembling property located on the barrier island near North Boulevard. Utopia now owns approximately 2 acres on the east side of A1A, on which 4 small motels are located, and also owns another parcel across A1A with a little t-shirt shop and a take-out pizza business. Both parcels have a future land use designation of commercial and B2 zoning. The developers had plans prepared for a modern 17-story hotel with 200 rooms, a full-service restaurant, resort-style pool, and poolside bar for the parcel on the east side of A1A, and they plan to provide valet parking using the site it acquired on the west side of A1A. The pro formas for the project contemplate the hotel being flagged as a national luxury brand. Construction budgets include costs to install substantial road improvements like turn lanes, traffic signals, and bike lanes, and all required impact and utility connection fees. Now, as a sideline, a subsidiary of Utopia Development called UDEVCO acquired a vacant grocery store site on the mainland within the city. At their request and with the support of the mayor, the city adopted a planned development zoning ordinance. Any area with commercial zoning is eligible for the PD overlay, which allows deviation from the standard zoning regulations, including maximum height, minimum parking, and in exchange for public amenities, high-quality architecture, green building features, and contributions toward job training programs. The only constraint on the PD is that the proposed development must be consistent with the comprehensive plan and meet concurrency. UDEVCO requested the PD ordinance as a mechanism to encourage and make feasible the redevelopment of its vacant commercial site and similar commercial sites within the city. Although the city anxiously anticipated UDEVCO's PD application for the vacant grocery store site following adoption of the PD overlay ordinance, instead, they submitted a PD rezoning and master plan application for the hotel site on the beach using the PD flexibility. So, that is our problem. Somebody didn't get in their set. Does everybody have this page, the summary of the residential?
When you say residential,
Summary,
for the,
summary of the future land use.
commercial use, recreational, open space use, resident use, and the R5.
Oh, now I see never mind. We've got land use categories and we've got zoning. Never mind, it's not the same thing. 2, 3, 4. So that is the issue. The application has been made using the PD regulations, not to rework the crappy old grocery store site, but to build a luxury hotel on the beach. So the first thing will be the city staff response. And the other part is the neighborhood opposition, and then we'll sort of talk our way through anything else. But neighborhood, who's going to be the neighborhood opposition and who's going to be the city staff? You're leaving, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm gonna go now, so.
no, you got break up this block. Okay. So, city staff, neighborhood opposition. City staff. Guess what? Unlikely. Neighborhood opposition. I want you to think. I should make you neighborhood opposition too, for your city staff. Your neighborhood opposition. City staff, neighborhood opposition. Okay, so organize yourselves a little bit. Except
city staff.
everybody, city staff, come on this side, neighborhood opposition, go on that side. So you gotta shuffle around.
City staff?
Yep.
So take some time to read. So city staff, your first job, you've got to evaluate the project and determine initially if you're going to support, and if you support it, what conditions or changes you want to it, or if you're going to reject it, you're going to not support it. And then if you're going to oppose it, figure out your rationale and how you would respond to the developer. I know nobody is the developer here at this point. Maybe I'll be the developer. So I'll come in to meet with you to hear your response, and then the neighborhood opposition will tell you, we'll assume that there was a public meeting about the project, and the neighborhood opposition will come tell you about their opposition to the project. Okay, so confirm.
If I'm in the city, I don't want trees.
All you gotta do is reverse what you experience when you go before the city. Just reverse it.
And maybe in the interest of time, so you know about, you know what's in the problem about the project. So you've been given a meeting with the developer where the developer laid out the hotel project. And so maybe you can formulate the neighborhood response to the hotel project. I can put background music on that, or I'll put it on my phone so you can all talk.
Maybe you want to be the landscape inspector?
Sure.
Yeah, for my thermos over there.
I'm the landscape inspector.
I can be
Little Dave Brubeck, take 5.
I'll be the man.
Just music, background.
So I've been playing roles for city engineer.
I guess I can be serious.
So what's your initial reaction?
I just,
You're still reading?
no, just, I didn't even need to finish. Now that I like.
I think like all of them just want to say is that they need to show the reason why they need them in the neighborhood because there's already don't want no any other projects in it. They need to show why
I was just gonna
bring
state that those are on
positive value to the neighborhood.
property, what is the
Because they have such families and the older people inside the
So
neighborhood
you're,
already.
I'm just a landscape.
you're a landscape
Yeah.
engineer? Planning
Should I
director?
not do that?
Yeah.
Can I be the mayor?
You can
The mayor, is the mayor included in the?
It,
I think it's
It's
more of an
vague.
outlier in this.
I kind of assume that this conflict exists, that the mayor supports the project and the rest of the city commission feels betrayed,
Oh, okay.
that the developer pushed through the PE, regulation with one thing in mind and then did a bait and switch.
Stop messing
So,
One question I wanted to ask, I really want to ask. Is there a fatal play going on in this project?
is there a what?
Fatal play going on in the development process?
With the mayor specifically?
Not just, not this,
He's already sending out stuff.
you know, fictional situation, but
Oh.
the reason I'm saying is because I see all the time these city officials taking bribes and going to prison.
You know, we,
Well, then you know what happens.
No, I'm not sure though, I'm not sure.
and that's,
As a developer, like, you're gonna sometimes face things, the government and everything, like, political, you have to be political relations to build anything, right?
I mean,
It's like politics.
you do, but there's a difference between observing campaign laws and making a contribution that's permitted by campaign finance laws, and bribing. That's not bribery.
Did the FEC ever allow the bitcoins to go
I have
through?
no idea. So,
No, because
Rabbit trail.
you know they
is
are,
that,
they're
it's
not.
definitely, the rabbit trail student is definitely not an endangered species when you're around. You're taking me on a rabbit trail.
No, because I was thinking, you could actually, they were
Don't-
saying it's
not pertinent.
untraceable.
So, but some of the pay-to-play issues here, you know, is there a relationship between the fictional developer
The state department
Kind of really shows a lack of planning in the city.
objectives,
It's gonna, you're gonna lose
So
that
if they were to
sleepy
build
little
a
seaside
hotel,
town,
we have to make
a bunch of strangers, you know.
We got a bakery grocery store we're losing, they're
and the
gonna
proper
go
escape routes.
Well,
You know,
the problem,
You wouldn't have driven over to that grocery store on the west side of town,
probably not.
you're rich,
lots of the,
and you don't really care
so,
if those
Yeah.
people, I mean, I'm trying, I hate to be,
that's gonna be one.
there's a parochial response
Yeah.
that people have to this.
Generally though, it's a Barry Island, so.
Is there
if
anything
God
that you
can't
want?
come, everybody has to back.
Out of this, if it's
Before the
gonna go
storm
happen, what do you
actually
want?
hits.
We want
If it's
them
the
to
actual
pay to
hurricane.
help with the damage towers from the hotel, if they can
But you
agree
can
to
get covered in
and
storm
offset
concept down
those costs.
With the warrant, is that like, usually not 24 hours?
That's,
48 hours.
that's a small change, I mean,
Barry Island.
Compared
I
to.
think you gotta keep a little bit higher.
Mainland, right?
I mean, personally, when you roof on a condo, what, $400,000?
That's not the issue, three or 400,000.
Well, these guys are gonna be building
They
a
had a
huge
meeting
hotel,
about 6 months ago.
you know,
But
right on the water.
West
Oh, and for
Hotel. Wait,
more
there.
parking.
Okay, I was at.
you want public, you want them to
You want
preserve
medical?
public access
Um,
to the beach?
I know a lot of
Sure
people
that
that
there's
are, that's the big ones.
What about,
a lot of them just swirl.
a beach
you know,
club that
supposed-
residents can join,
yeah.
so they can use the.
But you want medical, right?
Well, it kinda goes back to what we were saying, that it doesn't really do much to address the infrastructure.
I know
Kind
some
of
of
lacking a
the,
bit.
so
You
there's
can take
certain
away some of the.
Not Puerto Rico, accept it,
By adding
especially.
2 towers, 3
You know,
towers.
something to think about, if
No,
this
but
hotel
medical.
comes in and they pay,
I don't
You
care
know,
about, I don't
your-
really care about the.
your rates, you know, your utility rates might go down, if they're being shared by. So,
We're
maybe
rich,
you
we
can
got
ask,
money, so.
maybe you
That's a
can
couple of bucks a
ask,
month, right?
you can ask the
What
city
could we-
staff to make them study something, I don't know,
Basically the man.
that would, how would this,
Yeah,
We'll
we'll
take
do
away
that.
that.
Well, the thing is, since the parking beach access, they're too small of a part to provide.
We have a small sleepy town and now we're adding all this infrastructure, there's gonna be more tax.
Oh, wait a
More
second,
tax revenue, but there's gonna be more taxes to be written.
they're in opposition, right?
well,
Uh,
but then it's a matter of, is it a
There's
net,
some
if,
We're
We like
against
to
it.
do, we like
We're against it.
right,
you're the
it
main
might
incentive
increase
from
the
here out
budget
is,
of the town as a whole, but then
The
it,
president of the
it,
community
it
development.
increases the taxable value, so it's
It's a
probably
community.
not gonna cause
so
an
like, we're kinda like,
increase in
making
anybody else's
sure that
Yeah,
taxes,
we're
it
gonna
might
make
reduce
so
it.
that, yeah, dot all lines, cross all T's.
like, basically, but the infrastructure of the city can provide service to the developers, that the traffic impact with the development will not impact other citizens. And then we have to make sure that other necessary, like the evacuation.
When Anton gets back, we'll have, okay,
uh,
when he gets back, we'll have a DRC meeting. I guess I will be the developer, and you'll tell me, and that's how we'll do it, I'll be the developer. And then you'll hear from the community.
Can we just bribe the community and move on?
Who, me?
The community.
Can I, the developer, bribe the community?
That's a smart community person.
Sometimes I don't like guys.
We're gonna widen the streets. We're gonna retrofit the bridges.
These people are spending a lot of money.
So I'm trying to make sure that I understand. I'm
The
gonna get
development
the,
doesn't even make sense, it sounds like they're just trying to just show us pretty pictures.
It's
so they
all
can do half
talk,
that
buddy,
stuff.
it's all talk, we're just trying to get approval.
so remind me, I'm getting the exam out as soon as I can, and it's gonna be due on Wednesday, right?
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Sometimes I walk out of the table.
When citizens have to, we have to provide.
Is it gonna be set up just like the ones
Wouldn't that
on
have to
Shore
show,
Shore?
like, in terms of.
No essay,
Cities provide,
but a
no
lot more
alternative
customers.
Did we have an essay last
All
time?
right, thank you.
Yeah, we did.
Very good point. Public buses and something. They would have to, they would have to.
And I'll tell you, I am not inclined to have any sympathy
So
for
maybe they
people
could
writing
develop
essays.
it by-
I just don't, I'm like, that's like the easiest thing in the world. but
donation.
all of law school, every single class in law school, there was no assignments, there were no tests, there was one final exam, and that was the entire grade. For every single class in law school.
So you should just give us our last grade as our grade.
And each test was 4 hours long of writing in blue books, what they called it. That was it, that was the whole bailiwick. So, I'm like, writing, really, you're complaining to me about writing? I have no sympathy.
I'll
Okay.
take what I got on the last one.
Okay. I'm the developer, I'm coming to the city for a DRC meeting, it's a public meeting, so if you representatives of the neighborhood are here to find out what happens. And to chime in. All right, good afternoon, and thank you so much for meeting with me. I appreciate you getting me on the agenda, so I didn't have to wait an extra 2 weeks. You can't see them, but my consulting planner, my engineer, my architect is here with me, so we can respond to any of your questions. We're very happy to bring this project to your city. It's going to put your beach on the map for international tourists, so it's going to be a huge benefit to your community. But I'm interested in hearing your comments.
Well, first off, let's say, in terms of water and sewers service capacity, will be sufficient enough to provide service to the hotel and the adjacent commercial site, so there'll be no issue on that portion.
Great.
Though there is concern in terms of transit and traffic, because the citizens are concerned that there will be an increase in traffic. It would be sufficient that the developer provide a traffic impact study with the newly proposed development. And in addition to that, because the State Department of Economic Opportunity have objected to the density of the Barrier Island, we will have to include with that traffic impact study that citizens within that area can evacuate from the Barrier Island in case of impending hurricane.
Well, we would be glad to do, we've got the traffic study in the works. My traffic engineer will come meet with you so they can agree upon a methodology. And we'll also do that hurricane evacuation study that you've requested.
And in addition to that, because there is no transit service to that area in terms of hurricane evacuation, one way that could help meet that condition of meeting with the traffic impact would be to provide either funds to the city's general funding, so we can provide a transit service to that Barrier Island for citizens in that area and outside the area, so that we can provide a evacuation route utilizing city buses. And in the case of providing outside access into that area with buses to public and private beaches and parks.
Wow. We'll take that under advisement and we'll discuss that with the mayor. Code word for we're not going to agree to that. But we really can't solve the transit problem for the city with this one project, but we'll sure take that under advisement and see what we can do to help.
I'm Mr. Cunningham with the engineering department, and one of my greatest concerns is parking on the beach. As it currently stands, parking, especially on the weekends, is non-existent. With your hotel, it's going to even impact us in a greater capacity.
Well, and let me respond to that. This project is going to be net neutral as far as parking. We're going to provide 100% valet parking, and we have our own location on the west side of A1A to do the valet parking. So while we're not going to improve it for your citizens, we're not going to make it any worse because we're going to handle our own parking.
Well, that was one of my concerns. possible, some type of mitigation as far as the parking is concerned.
We'll take that under consideration. Maybe we can, improve a few local streets to create some parallel parking for you on some local streets, if you'll allow
We'll take that
that.
into consideration. Thank you.
Planning director. You're the one who's the planner here, you gotta, and incidentally, typically there's someone who chairs these meetings and quarterbacks, you know, solicits, but you're the designated chair of the meeting, so go. No, you don't have any?
No.
No? So I'm glad that you're satisfied with the size and the density and the intensity. And I guess we have a free hand when it comes to architectural design. I'm trying to feed you the things that a planning director would be concerned with.
We're considering green.
You know, we're gonna put a big blank concrete wall next to all of the sidewalks.
A green rooftop or like green leaf.
I'm like trying to, how much more horrible can I make it? We're gonna have lots of lighting
No
to just
windows,
to
no
draw,
eyebrows.
you know, really ugly garish signs and blank walls that don't activate the pedestrian sidewalk at all. And 1970s era architecture, that's what we're going for.
Okay, we're
You can
gonna.
ask for better.
But, just to add one more point to the, traffic. Well, because, it's not on my end that I can approve of this, because you will have to go, to the State Department for approval of this, as this, goes over my authority, or this city's authority when it comes to being approved for this property.
On what regulatory issue?
On evacuation routes.
Oh, that's gonna have to be approved by the Department of Economic Opportunity. Okay, we'll keep that in mind. We'll get the best. We'll get the best.
We would like to hear from. our
Okay,
landscape.
so
The planner.
we're discussing that we're gonna do a walkway easement. There's gonna be walks to the beach access. We're thinking about doing that building as a LEED certified. No?
You're not the developer.
You want me to do this LEED certified?
No?
Okay. Well, we'll take it under advisement. But, you know, beach access, this concerns me, because I'm building a very high-end development, and security is a big concern for me, because your beachfront is not the most crime-free area in the world. So I need to protect the perimeter, I need to protect my property. I'm really not gonna be comfortable allowing public beach access across my private hotel.
Could we have an easement with walls?
Well, you can have an easement by prescription. All right. What's that?
We're not gonna allow people to come walking through for 7 years to develop a easement by
Well, if
prescription.
they've already been through, right? And you purchased the parcel, well, they've already gone through, the easement's created.
No,
That's
I
not,
wouldn't say so.
really?
There's a lot of there would be a lot of facts to argue about.
Okay, because my family has a house on the beach where that's become an issue,
Yeah,
and they have one
they
of those-
allege that they acquired an easement by prescription.
Yeah, but we put up a wall, not like Donald Trump though.
Okay, so, I haven't observed in your code any particular architectural requirements, but I was just kidding, trust me, we've hired a fine architect who's gonna build a beautiful building for your beach. Anything else? So you wanna hear from landscapes? We wanna hear from
Yeah.
landscape.
So, actually, I wanted to question you on this. You have a lot to the west, you have a lot to the east, separated by A1A. It's the lot to the west on the edge of coastal.
No, it's not that deep.
Because one of the concerns was regarding sea furnace, but we can get rid of that.
Yeah. No, it's not that deep. It's just an old, an old pickup pizza place, and, we're gonna improve that.
That's a valet area.
Yeah, we'll put a small building there if we have to, but, mostly our valet service is gonna be taking cars across there for the valet parking.
Well, considering that used to be an industrial area, there
And
was
are we
an
supposed to
impact
support-
on the water and soil, so you need to include an environmental study on the soil quality and erosion.
Well, I mean, it's been developed already. It's developed with a building, a little old building and a parking lot. So we're just gonna demolish the building and repave the parking and use it as a valet lot. So it's gonna remain, we're not really doing anything to disturb the soil. But, if you think there's a regulation that requires it, we'll comply
Oh,
with the
yeah,
regulation.
you have to deal with the EPA.
It's not wetland. It's not wetland, or, this is the lot on the west side of A1A that we're gonna use for valet parking, not the site that our sister company owns. That was
Okay, no,
commercial
that's
solar.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
One more question.
Mhm.
What are your plans as far as turtle nesting is concerned?
We are gonna include all turtle compliant lighting, where required by state law, absolutely. Turtles are us.
Including non-reflective windows.
Yes, we're gonna have
Yeah.
turtle, we're gonna have the glass that's required, we're gonna have shielded lights, we're gonna do all that. Trust me.
I'm in favor.
Okay, now, the chairman of the meeting, observe that there are members of the public who've attended the meeting and ask them if they have any comments.
Any comments?
We got some comments. You guys are talking about basically shuttling cars across the causeway, off-site parking. I mean, this is gonna create a lot of traffic. So, I mean, I don't really see how this plan addresses this traffic issue. I mean, you should be able to build a building with contained parking.
So you want them to make me include the impact of the valet parking in my traffic study?
We wanna see a
Went up by
traffic study, and we wanna
$10,000.
see how it's gonna affect our roads. I mean, we have limited access now as it is, and you're planning on shuttling cars back and forth between here and there. I mean, it's not what we signed up for. I mean, we own $1 million homes, and now you're increasing our traffic, proposing to put a huge hotel, and talking about potentially limiting beach access. Like, I'm sorry, but that just doesn't work for us. I mean, we need to find more creative ways to, to make this beneficial for all parties.
And you're gonna just keep soliciting comments and take them down, but you can't really respond to them yet. But any, just more comments?
Yeah, there was a comment, I'd like to see like some actual, infrastructure, reports. You're saying that the sewer and the water infrastructure is fine. I mean, as I understand it, most of these condos were built for like, retirement communities, and now we have families. I'm not sure as to what the densities are when those things were built, but I'm assuming that you don't have the same type of density with a family condo as you do with a retirement community, or not retirement, but 55 and older. So,
Well, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I just want to respond to that we can't, this one single project has to mitigate the impact of the project, but I cannot legally be required to cure pre-existing deficiencies. So if the development of the condos down the street was deficient in some respect, it can't be the obligation of a new project to cure the pre-existing deficiency. That's got to be on the city to find a way through special assessment or something else to correct that. So I appreciate their coming out and giving us their thoughts, and we'll certainly address anything that we can, but I can't be charged with fixing their water and sewer if it's inadequate. I just wanted to let you know.
Duly noted.
I have a concern. I'm a representative from from the association from the condo towers, and we were alerted by the head of the association for the single family homes. And we have some towers that were damaged due to the hurricane, and we would be more inclined to support this project if you could in some way ensure that you would help offset the cost of repairing those towers and maybe provide some sort of, like a beach club or something like that. Some sort of beach club that our community members could have access to.
Amenities of the hotel.
There you go.
What? I'm sorry.
So we can have access to the amenities of the hotel,
Not all of the amenities, but maybe
the pool.
like a
Beaches.
beach club where we.
The beach club.
Did
They
you
can
miss
have
the
a-
parking club
There we go.
Boy.
where she talked about the neighborhood not being that great?
You know, I'm glad, I mean, any member of the public is, of course, welcome to speak at your meetings, but I just want to point out that most of these condo